I'm Amy Odell, and welcome to the Back Row Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Mara Einstein. Mara, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, I want to tell the audience about you. You have a really interesting path. You were an actress, you got an MBA, then you started working in advertising and accounts, including Miller Lite, Uncle Ben's Rice. You shifted to entertainment. You had marketing roles at VH1 and NBC. You said in an interview that this was mind numbing and you were looking for something a little bit more stimulating.
Yep.
And you got a PhD in media ecology, and now you are a professor at CUNY, and you've written 8 books
Yep.
on marketing, religion, and advertising. The latest is Hoodwinked: How Marketers Use the Same Tactics as Cults, which is absolutely fascinating. So tell us first, how are brands like cults?
First, it has to do with the way that cults lure people in. They look for vulnerable people. Advertising is always about finding where you are most vulnerable. So my hair isn't good enough, or I'm not thin enough, or my car is not great enough. And so they try to find ways to get you to buy to make you feel better. The second part of this is luring with deception. So what cults do is invite you to have a free dinner, have a free meditation class, and then as you start to connect with the people and you come for another dinner and another yoga class, then they upsell you to take another class, right? And eventually you become part of the group. As it continues, you have things like love bombing, you have things like extracting information from you that they can then use against you later on, separating you from people who will tell you that there's a problem with a cult. And in traditional times before digital spaces, cults had to be in far off places like Waco or Rajneesh, Oregon, or Guyana for Jonestown. But because of digital, we have been put into these silos. We are separated from people who disagree with us. And so we have these sort of cult-like spaces now online. But when we think about it in terms of marketing, this replicates what we talk about as the marketing funnel. And at the top of the marketing funnel, you introduce your product to people, you make them aware of it. Then the next part of the funnel is to convert, which I always think is really funny that we use the word convert when you buy, because obviously the connection to religion. And then finally, loyalty. We think in terms of paid, owned, and earned media. Paid media is the advertising that you have. Owned media is your website or any of your social pages, and then earned media. And you want to do as much earned media as possible. So you try to get people part of your cult because then they become your source of earned media.
You write in Hoodwinked about how this also just stems from the lack of community that we find in other aspects of our lives. People are not finding it in religion, for instance, or in other institutions. So they're turning to brands.
Why brands came in to fill this void is that we don't have the cultural and social institutions that we used to have that became means for us to form our identity. Religion used to be something that people connected to, and that was very much a part of who they were. Every Sunday you went to church, or Saturday you went to temple, or you went to a mosque, right? Or your job. People work for IBM for 30 years. People are still working at MTV from when I worked there, and I haven't worked there in 30 years. Those kinds of connections are very much part of your identity, but most people don't have that anymore. And so brands came in to fill the void. There became this whole situation of purpose marketing, right? Brands began to connect themselves to causes. Some companies do it better than others. So something like Patagonia, very much connected to sustainability, or Rihanna's brand Fenty is very much connected to this idea of being all inclusive. And so when people start to buy products and they go to the store and they think, do I want to connect myself with Fenty and Rihanna and this idea of being part of a group of people, or do I want to buy a product like, I don't know, Maybelline that doesn't mean anything? And it's been very up and down in terms of purpose marketing.
By up and down, you mean like it's popular and then it's not popular?
Yeah, companies still talk about wanting to do purpose, and they can't figure out how to do it right. Part of the issue, I think, is that purpose is the wrong word. Impact is what you want to be doing. And this idea of impact is growing in more and more corporate organizations.
We've seen the luxury industry toy with this a bit. There was a Balenciaga runway show under creative director Demna, where after the war in Ukraine started, he did a fashion show meant to sort of evoke imagery of refugees leaving. Even Vogue tried to do that
Mhm.
too, this whole inclusivity thing. And then I feel like the industry just kind of stopped around the time that Trump took office, to be quite honest with you. We see what's happening with DEI and everything all over the
Right.
place. But what do you make of it as like a luxury idea?
I haven't looked at this specifically, but luxury is a whole separate category, right? And you're buying an item because of what it says about you, right? If you're buying these high-end products, you're buying it because you want people to know that you're buying it, not that it's so high-end. But I started thinking about Labubus, right? And how people
Yeah.
were buying
They're
those.
expensive for what they are,
Yes,
in my opinion.
absolutely. That's what I mean. It's like it's not exactly luxury, but it's so high priced for what it is. But that's what was saying to people, I can afford to do this. I don't have just one, I have four. And do I have one that's unavailable? Certainly, if you're talking about luxury items, you do get into this idea of scarcity because they don't make a ton of them and it's going to be more limited. And so the few people who get to own these very wonderful, high priced items are going to be able to say, yeah, you saw this in Vogue and now I'm wearing it, right? It's creating an identity for the person that's wearing those products.
Hermes has this whole racket with the Birkin bags, which you see talked about online endlessly, where people are like, "Oh, I went all the way to Paris to try to go to the Hermes flagship and I couldn't get an appointment," and they're like crying.
Right.
Or they got their appointment and they got their bag and they're, unboxing it. My understanding is that you need to spend a certain amount of money
Uh,
and then they will deign to offer you a bag. But when they offer you a bag, it might not be the bag that you really want. It might be a big red bag. And it's kind of like, well, this is the bag I have for you today.
right.
You could either take it
Right.
and I'll have your $15,000 or not. And
Right.
maybe I'll call you again. Maybe I won't. Hermes is like a cult. It has cult qualities, right?
Right. Well, this gets into the whole idea of scarcity marketing. And scarcity marketing is when companies suggest to you that they don't have that many. And so if you're able to get it, it's a wonderful thing. On a more consumer product based example is, at the holidays, Nintendo or Xbox or whatever, they'll say, "Oh, we don't have that many." Now, they do. They're going to try and sell as many of those machines as they possibly can. But they will say, "Oh, there's only a limited amount." So then they can create all the hype around it so that people are lining up outside stores before they open. Same thing every time an iPhone comes out, which I think is ridiculous. People stand online to get the latest iPhone, which has maybe a slightly different functionality than the last phone. Hermes is doing the same thing, is we're holding back on what you want. And what they also do, because they're creating this scarcity around the bag, exactly to the point of what you're saying, you have to buy. How much money are people spending before they spend the $15,000 on the bag? $100,000?
Yeah, more than that.
Yeah. So it becomes a win-win for the company in two ways. One, they make sure that people are going to spend a bucket ton of money in the store before they're ever deigned to buy the bag. And two, it becomes a source of conversation in multiple spaces online, which again is that earned media. Scarcity marketing is coming bigger and bigger and bigger.
But they probably do it better than anybody. I mean, it works
Yeah,
on me all the time. Like just yesterday, I have to get my kids some warmer clothes for the winter. I ordered something that didn't fit, need something else. Amazon is fast. And it's like, only three left, only two left. And I'm like, oh my God, well, I better get this. So, like, that's another example, right?
totally. It's a lot. They definitely have more than two left.
I really wanted to talk to you about Black Friday. That's a really significant day in the fashion industry and for retail. How does that mirror cult tactics?
Just the idea of you have to buy that day. You have to be out at the store. It's like you have no control. And that's part of what happens in a cult. So this is almost a social cult, if you want to talk about it that way, is tying into people's vulnerabilities. So how are we vulnerable around the holiday, right? And if you think about it that way, it's this idea that how much I spend on you, how much I give to you is my communication to you about how much I care about you. That's tapping into our vulnerabilities. If I don't buy all of them gifts, if I don't have a gift for everybody who comes to my house, if I don't have a gift for the hostess, who's throwing the party, like all of that starts to create all this anxiety in us about we have to go, we have to go, we have to go. Now, we have all these social cues that are telling us that it has to be on Black Friday. And I think this has to do with the possible mass economic blackout that people have been talking about, that it's supposed to happen from November 24th to December 2nd, which will cover Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
What do you mean mass economic blackout?
The particular people who were involved in the No Kings marches and have been protesting against the current administration feel like the best way that they can show their disdain for what's going on in our country right
Not
now
spend, yeah.
is not spend. I mean,
Okay.
literally
Mhm.
nothing for that week period. And so, unless it's necessities, or you can buy local or thrift, but no big companies, no unnecessary items. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not people actually stay home during that period of time. But it's hard for a lot of people because it has been so ingrained in us that the day after Thanksgiving, you go to the stores and you go shopping. This started in the 1980s, right? So people who were in their 40s, who are going to be some of the biggest spenders, this has existed for their entire life. And so you have this feeling of being left out. And at the same point, you go to the store, what happens? It's like, you get love bombed. Can I help you here? Some of the reasons people often go shopping is so they can have a personal interaction with somebody over the course of the day.
I hear about that all the time. So I do these interviews with luxury retail workers where clients are coming in and spending literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in one sitting, then in a year, let's say. And I'm like, why are people doing this? Because these people don't like need anything, you know? And one of the most common responses is they just want someone to hang out with. They're just lonely.
Yeah, then you get love bombed, you get people telling you how great you are, and the more you spend, you start to feel good. The music, you have scarcity marketing and you have sensory marketing. And sensory marketing is also big right now. You go to the mall, you've got all kinds of smells in there that are evoking the idea of the holiday. You have the visual cues, you have the sound cues, you have all the music playing. All of that is coming together to get you to buy. And then you see the sales, and then you start saying, oh, well, it's just this much money. And then you start buying it. But let us be cautious about the sale numbers on Black Friday. Oftentimes, what happens is the store pushes up the price just before Black Friday and then drops it back down for the holiday. So it makes you feel like you're getting a deal. But what I was saying before in terms of the possible blackout, what we're seeing with Black Friday, Walmart's already started Black Friday, I think, today.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. What's the point of like Black Friday? Because it seems to happen earlier and earlier. Earlier in my career, when I was at New York Magazine, I was there from '08 to 12. And I remember writing up Brown Thursday just because I thought it was like hilarious and dumb.
It was Brown Thursday? What was that?
Thanksgiving was like the warm up to
Oh,
Black Friday. It was called Brown Thursday. And then you have Cyber Monday. So there's lots of days. And then Goop put up their gift guide in October. And I looked through this morning because I knew I was going to be talking to you, my emails just to see who is sending me Black Friday
oh, so many.
emails. And of course, there's so many. I pulled one from Lululemon, which you talk about in the book. So I just want to read this to you. It probably sounds, just like nothing, but I feel like you could decode it.
Okay.
So the email says early access to Black Friday is all yours. Be the first in line to thrilling once a year finds starting Monday, November 17th, only on the Lululemon app.
Oh,
Don't miss out. Download the app, log into your membership account, and enable push notifications. So obviously, they're trying to get us to get their app and get the push notifications. And then Cos, do you know what Cos is? The like minimalist,
no.
sort of like the Row knockoffy brand.
Oh, okay.
I actually like their clothing, but anyway, anyway, so they sent one too that was like they're trying to get you to sign up for text. It's like sign up for text and you'll get early access.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is too, with the app, they're able to tap into your data in a way they can't online. I mean, they can to a certain extent online. If you actually go to their website, they can grab your data, and that's known as first party data. And so that becomes information that they can use, they retain, they have all about you.
What is in that data for people who don't know?
First party data, what companies do when you're traveling around online is they're trying to amass as much data about you as they possibly can. What did you buy? What did you hover over? Did you put something into your cart? Right. And so one person that I talked to, and this was from my last book called Black Ops Advertising, they said that on a single web page or website, they collect as many as 70,000 data points. 70,000.
Wow.
Right. And so they have that information from you going to their website. How much did you spend? All that kind of stuff. Then they can connect that with what's known as third party data. And that's places like Axios and some of these other brokers. And then they can combine that data to find out even more information about what kind of things do you buy? When do you buy? How much money do you spend? How many kids you have? All that kind of stuff. And it in app, they are able to retain the information and get more information than they can necessarily when you're online. The other thing I would say to people, which they may or may not know, is if you use Facebook or any of the other social media apps, as long as the app is open, as long as you are signed in, if you go to a website where that icon exists, and face it, Facebook is practically everywhere, then Facebook is
Mhm.
collecting data from you from that website.
Yeah, so that's why if I go to Cos, then I might see it on
Fa-
as advertised to me on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now emails are really interesting. 'Cause it used to be that you really opted in for the emails. But what happens now is every time you go to a website or you buy something, automatically they sign you up for, the emails, and it could drive you crazy. I will also say this, from a marketer's perspective, email is more effective than an influencer in getting people to buy.
What about texts? Because texts are now more and more the thing that they're trying to get you to sign up for.
Yeah, they are, but there's something about email that it is more engaging, feels more personal and all that. I don't have the data about texts, but I think that most people just find them irritating.
Yes, they are irritating. But this also plays into FOMO, right?
Yes.
Like sign up now or you're going to miss out, which you say in the book is a marketing term. I didn't know that.
I think people think that FOMO was something that was created by some influencer or whatever. It was
I
created
thought it was just like internet speak, but continue.
It was created by a marketing strategist. People started using FOMO in relationship to social engagements and not just in terms of marketing. But it was created by a marketing strategist to make people feel like they were going to miss out if they didn't buy this thing right now. And that creation of having to buy something right away, again, anxiety. It's all about creating anxiety for us.
Let's talk about the anxiety economy. Is that
Yeah, anxiety economy.
please explain that? I hadn't heard that. I thought it was fascinating and very relatable.
Economists would tell us that we live in an attention economy. And an attention economy meaning that every time you look down at your phone, they want you to be engaging with it. And as long as you engage with it, that's where the money is coming from, right? Because data is the term we often hear in corporate is data is the new oil, right? Because that's where the value is for these companies. But what I argue in the book is that we're living in an anxiety economy because it's not just that they want your attention. They want you to be so sort of ginned up that you have to stay engaged, that you have to stay online. And both the technology and the content come together to work in such a way as to get you to feel that anxiety. So part of it is if you spend time on social media, there isn't a natural break. Right? You have to physically stop yourself because you read a book, you close a book, you're done, it's over. The movie's over, you're done. Goodbye. But there isn't that natural break. And so you continue to scroll. And as you become more anxious, right? And if you're reading some of the stuff, right, that's going on in the world right now, you can get pretty darn anxious. And so that anxiety needs release. And one of two ways that happens is either you scroll some more, which means you'll be engaging with a lot more advertising, which is what companies want you to do because that's really all your phone is. It's a tool for advertisers. Or you buy something, right? The going gets tough and the tough go shopping, which is also the ultimate goal. So it's a win-win for these platforms. You're seeing more ads or you end up buying something. Now, that's the technical side of it. The content side of it is that when you look at what gets engagement, heightened emotion, right? Something's amazing and then you send it to someone, or rage. And there's an awful lot of rage baiting and rage farming. And so people know that they will get more engagement and then the influencers who make more money, the more outrageous they are. What I think was really interesting from a marketer's standpoint is we're seeing marketers do rage baiting and it's backfiring on them. And the example that I would give in terms of that is the Elf ad with Matt Rife. Right. Here
Mhm.
is a comedian that talks about domestic violence. Like that's kind of what he's known for. And he's selling a cosmetic company that is known for being very female friendly. Had an ad campaign called Too Many Decks, right? About how many Richards there are in the corporate boardrooms, and there need to be more women in these corporate boardrooms. And so they created this ad that got everybody talking about it. But they were talking about it because they were mad at the company. And so for companies taking on this idea that they should rage bait as a way for them to increase their engagement is kind of losing the plot, I would say.
Yeah, I thought you might say Sydney Sweeney's American
Well, that
Eagle
too.
ad. Although I don't know if that was intentional. What do you think?
I absolutely think it's intentional. Paralleled it with the Brooke Shields ad that it was supposedly an homage to. And
Yeah.
the Brooke Shields ad is, as I'm sure you well know, it's like a minute long. And she said afterwards that she was not proud of having done that particular ad. And so to, reproduce an ad that somebody who was in it was already
But that was controversial at the time.
it was more controversial because she was so young. She was 14 or 15 in that ad.
Sydney Sweeney is a polarizing individual.
She
Yeah.
is. She's also very blonde, very blue-eyed. The idea that she would say Sydney Sweeney has great genes, it's a real sort of smack in the face. I don't think people could read it any other way, just given where we are as a society right now.
Are there new Black Friday marketing tactics? Like, I remember from my childhood, people after Thanksgiving, basically after dinner, they would go wait outside in the cold to go to
Yeah.
the mall and buy a dishwasher or whatever it may be. Are we still doing that as much?
Well, I think this year is different just because of what we were saying before. That Black Friday is isn't a single day anymore. And not only is it not a single day, it's
It's
two
like a
weeks.
season.
It's a season. And I've never seen that before. Have you?
I don't think so. I don't remember thinking like, why are these gift guides coming out in October?
I was seeing holiday stuff in stores at
It's
the end of
aggressive.
October.
Yes.
It wasn't even Halloween yet. And I was seeing
Yes.
Christmas
Yes.
stuff. And I was like,
I did notice that.
that's kind of weird. I think couple of reasons why I think this is happening. There's a lot of people who don't have money right now. And certainly during the shutdown there was an issue, and now those people hopefully are getting their back pay, but even so they're feeling pinched. So many people have lost their jobs that intentionally or unintentionally, they're not going to be shopping on Black Friday. And you have people that are not just calling for this economic blackout, but also people that are saying, let's cancel Christmas this year. Let's kind of stick it to the corporations and let them know that we're not happy with them supporting the administration that we don't agree with. And so the best way that we can vote, because it's going to be a long time before we can vote at the polls again, we're going to vote with our pocketbook. And people have been taught to vote with their pocketbook for a while. What's interesting is that people have done a number of boycotts now. So we've seen it against Target. Target got really hurt when they pulled back from their DEI. And that goes back to the values thing that we talked about before, that they walked away from that there was so much a part of what that company was to their consumer. Just goes to show you how much people turned on them, and in large numbers. You look at Tesla. People started going to the dealerships and complaining at the dealerships. The sales of their cars in June went down like crazy. Why Elon Musk is getting a $1 trillion package, I don't know, then the car company is tanking. And
Yeah.
then you look at Disney. When Disney fired Jimmy Kimmel, within 4 days, so many people had canceled their Disney Plus subscription that the company lost somewhere between 1.5 and $4 billion over the course of several days, and the company had to pivot back. And so over this period of time, you're starting to see that consumers are getting really good at boycotting.
Going back to Black Friday season starting before Halloween. So you're saying that brands and retailers are doing that to capture a greater share of a smaller amount of spend?
Yes. What people, I don't know if they
Like, let me
know.
get them to spend their money with me first so that, before it's too late,
Le-
that type of thing?
Yeah, because I don't think that Black Friday's become quite a dirty word yet, but it's starting to feel a little tarnished to some people.
But in what way? Just like you, like a consumerist
Yeah,
event?
it's just very consumerist. I remember when the guy in Valley Stream at the Walmart was plowed over by people and died. I don't know if people listening remember this, but there was one of the workers at Walmart who was standing at the door, and people were standing outside. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. It was really, really cold outside, and they wanted to get whatever the latest toy or gizmo was. And people went pushing through the door, and this poor man died
Right.
because
Do you remember
people.
what year that was? It wasn't all that long
No,
ago.
is it like early 2000s? Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, and there's now there's a website that tracks the number of deaths on Black Friday.
Did that start after
That
this
started after
particular
this, and
incident?
there's been, I think, over a 20-year period, there were like 17 people who've died because of being plowed over for that. But there's also been the increase of people fighting in parking lots and just over all kinds of stuff. It's like talk about losing the plot of the holiday season. I think that the people are tending toward a more simplistic idea of how to spend the holiday.
So let me ask you this, Dr. Einstein. How do you feel about National Retail Federation data? Because obviously they're in bed with the retailers,
Right.
but they do projections. And so
Hmm.
I looked them up before we spoke. They are forecasting that holiday sales for 2025 are expected to increase between 3.7% and 4.2% from last year, 2024,
Hmm.
passing $1 trillion or Elon Musk's pay package for the first time.
Yeah.
And the chart is kind of interesting because it goes back 20 years
Hmm.
and there have been increases in holiday shopping every year except for around '08 when unsurprisingly there was a dip. So from '07 to '08 it declined 4.5%, but then every year was up. So it was up 2% the next year. By 2010 it had gone back to above the previous high in 2007, and then it's just been up, up, up. And if you look at 2020 and 2021 in this chart, huge increases there. The pandemic
Right, because people are at home
years where
and they had
everyone
nothing to
was,
do but shop.
yep,
Yep.
they had nothing to do. So yeah, 2019 to 2020 up 8.9%, and from 2020 to 2021, 12.5%. So we've kind of leveled off, but yeah, so they're forecasting an increase. I could be wrong, right?
I used to run the internship program in my school for media studies, and I did it around 2008. In 2008, initially, it was really hard for students to get internships. And then it became really easy because what happened is that companies fired their workers, their employees, and then hired interns to do the work of the people that they fired. So all of a sudden, people were able to get jobs. Well, now, fast forward to 2025, it's really hard for students to get internships. People are not hiring. And so what I'm seeing, I look at that as kind of a bellwether as to what might happen in the broader economy. If students can't get these jobs because people aren't hiring, the large tech companies just fired thousands of people, thousands of them. These were the STEM jobs, right? That everybody went to school and got these degrees, and these were supposed to be safe jobs. They're not firing them because of AI. They're firing them because they need the capital to pay for the data centers to run the AI. That's different.
Yeah, Amazon laid off 14,000 corporate workers. Plans call for cuts of up to 30,000 jobs, or roughly 10% of the white collar workforce.
Right.
That was late October.
And then they just had this huge party for Kris Jenner or whoever it was.
Yeah, exactly. At our $125 million Beverly Hills mansion, the Met Costume Institute announced the next exhibition, which is the basis for the Met Gala. Do you know who is making it possible financially?
Oh, it's gotta be his wife, Bezos' wife.
Yeah, them together, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez
Course,
Bezos.
of course it is.
And they're so prominent that in the announcement that the Met put on Instagram, made sure to include their names.
Now, so is she gonna be running Vogue?
No, no. Why would she want to do that?
This
Why should she do work when she
Okay.
can just give some money and then have her,
Yeah.
headline?
I'm on somebody's dissertation committee, and he is writing about Edward Bernays. And Edward Bernays was the father of PR. He was also the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And so this is this wonderful story about how Lucky Strikes cigarettes had come to Edward Bernays and said, "We need to sell these cigarettes, but nobody wants to buy these cigarettes because the packaging is green." And he said, "Well, change the color on the package." Right. And they said, "No, we don't want to change the color on the package." And so what he did is he got the fashion industry to say that green was going to be the next big color. And it used to be that nobody wore green. Nobody would do this. And so
What year was this?
this was 1934.
Okay.
So in the middle of the Depression, right?
Mhm.
And so the fashion industry starts showing dresses made in green. But the big thing was the ball, the green ball. And the green ball was run by all these high society ladies. And one of the things that was particularly interesting that they did is they brought these paintings from Europe and then they recreated the paintings as tableau with these society ladies dressed in green colors, right? And then they would have a fashion show afterwards showing all of the different dresses. And it was again scarcity so that people could sign up to get some of the dresses made for them. But it was just this amazing society ball paid for by, well, it was hidden that some of it was paid for by Lucky Strike, but that it was this high society event, all showing that it was doing some kind of charity work, when in fact what it was doing was trying to change people's minds so that they would think that green was okay and ultimately increase the sale of Lucky Strike. It's fascinating.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
The fashion industry is powerful. So those of you listening who work in the fashion industry,
Yeah,
you
because
may
it
be
was
more
them.
powerful than you know.
Yeah, and this is also the same guy who came up with the idea of torches of freedom, right? Is that getting women to smoke cigarettes is he gave some of these socialite women, had them walk in the middle of the Easter parade and light up a cigarette, and they called them torches of freedom. And all of a sudden, cigarette smoking was open to women.
What a winner. Guys, don't smoke.
Yeah.
It's not good for you. Okay. Okay, but so it's funny because when the Met announcement came out this morning, I was texting with a journalist friend of mine
Uh-huh.
who had recently written about another prominent person involved with the whole
Uh-huh.
shebang, very wealthy party, not nearly as wealthy as Jeff and Lauren Bezos. But anyway, she was like, God, all that matters is money and French Revolution vibes. And I feel like every podcast I'm doing now, I'm talking about the French Revolution. Anyway, is there a way to work around this? Like, if people are listening who they have to market
Right.
their brand, this is what they do. Like, how do you get around these optics are just so uncomfortable?
I would say a couple of things about that. If you are going to do some kind of marketing when you're connecting yourself to a cause, only do it if you're going to really commit yourself to it, which means that you're going to do it year after year after year after year, that it is fundamentally embedded into your company and everything that you do. But if you're going to, do a float at the Pride Parade and never think about the implications on that community any other day for the rest of the year, don't bother. Really, don't bother. It's really not worth it either to your company ultimately or to your consumer. What I also say is it's not bad to buy. It's bad to buy too much. There's a difference. If you want to go out and spend $500 on a really good leather backpack because you're going to be using that backpack for 20 years, then do that. And it's probably better than buying a bunch of, $20 backpacks that you're going to have to throw out every 6 months. Be really conscious what it is from a consumer perspective. It's about being more mindful. From a marketing perspective, it's to try to be as honest as you can be within the work that you're doing. And look, fashion is amazing. It's not an area I've ever been involved in, but you're talking about art and you're talking about beauty and you're talking about what could be bad about making the world a more beautiful place.
I'll echo that point because in the reporting I've done on sustainable fashion, my understanding from experts has always been, like corporate fashion, the supply chain, it's kind of all the same.
Hmm.
So what you really want to look for and invest your money in is something that you're going to wear a lot. And the most sustainable thing you can do is buy something that you're just going to wear as much as possible.
My daughter is Gen Z and she's very into thrifting and she says her friends are into that. And I think we might see more of that. If Amazon's laid off 14,000, then they're going to do a total of 30,000. And, it's not just them. Facebook is also laid off. Meta has laid off people. Where are those jobs for those people? I don't know. But I think that people are going to be tightening their belts this year in a way that they haven't before. Combine that with really wealthy people going to things like the Real. If I was a betting girl, and I can be sometimes, I'm going to say that the Retail Federation is going to be off this year.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. I'm gonna come back to it in the new year when we get their next report.
People, I hope, want to spend more time meeting each other face to face and not doing everything online. Call your friends. I think that's still one of the vestiges of COVID that we just have not dealt with is remembering to make plans to meet your friends, to see each other, go get a cup of coffee, whatever it is. And it's been very detrimental, I hope, at least in some quarters. There's more of a push to spend time with family and not spend time, in a shopping mall while they're doing it.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, my theory on that is we all are just so busy. And I'm sure a lot of it is economic anxiety, whether we think about it consciously or just feel it in the ether because we read stories like this Wall Street Journal article about the 30,000 Amazon layoffs. And I think that when we feel that kind of pressure all the time, and so many of us are gig economy workers and all of that, it just feels sort of impossible to take that time for ourselves. But I agree with you. I was out for a run the other day and I bumped into a friend and I stood there and talked to her for like half an hour. And I felt so invigorated
Right.
after that interaction. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen her in a while.
Yeah.
This was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, you're exactly right. You wrote in 2024, the tide might be turning. The de influencing trend, which gained traction in early 2024, encourages consumers to reject overconsumption. Younger audiences, especially Gen Z, are becoming more aware of the environmental and psychological toll of compulsive shopping. They are choosing experiences over material goods and opting for mindful consumption, but we still seem to be buying a lot. So I just want to know if you still believe that in 2025, a year after you wrote that.
I want to believe it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, your Gen Zs are your students, so
The
and you have
Gen
a Gen
Zs
Z
are my
daughter.
students.
Yeah.
And the de-influencing thing. The de-influencing thing, I think, is happening in the food area more than the fashion area right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
because there's been a number of food influencers who have gone to restaurants and taken advantage of the establishment and either done a really bad review or didn't tip people or whatever it is. And so restaurateurs are getting to the point where, you know what, the cost benefit analysis here isn't sort of paying off in terms of letting an influencer into my space. Now, when it comes to some of the other things, one of the things that I looked at recently was the film Wicked and all the tie-ins. There's 400 tie-ins.
What?
400. I mean,
For the second one that's coming out?
for the second one that's coming out.
Wow.
And some of them make sense, right? Like the makeup line that Ariana Grande has. I mean, obviously, and there's very flamboyant makeup in the movie. All good. Swiffer, they're saying that it's like a broom, like a
Oh my
witch
god, that's
broom,
hilarious. Okay.
which is kind of funny. But some of the other ones like that don't make any kind of sense at all. And so that's the kind of thing that I think people can get caught up in. They want to be part of this whole event because it feels like an event. It's not just a
Yeah,
film.
like Barbie.
But I don't have any hard numbers about whether or not younger people are buying now. But there's so much in terms of that generation. Dungeons and Dragons, right? They're very into D&D. They're very into watching each other play on Twitch and all of that kind of stuff. I think that's where they're spending their money, doing these things that are more engaging with other people.
Yeah. You mentioned in the book that Mark Zuckerberg's dream is to have us in the metaverse where everything is an advertisement. And I was like, that is so gross. And obviously, you're right. What does that look like? Where are we headed with AI?
So there's AI that people use for business purposes and helps them with making some of their workload run easier. But there's other parts of AI like generative AI, like ChatGPT that are really kind of dangerous. And what we're seeing, particularly now, is a number of suicides in relationship to the chat. In terms of AI, sort of broadly, I think that the cart is before the horse, and it should be slowed down. But frankly, we're not seeing that that's going to happen because the finance people are putting more and more money into the data centers, so it's going to explode. In terms of like advertising and marketing, most of the marketing that I've seen that's been done with AI is you can tell that it's AI. Yeah, once you
Yeah.
you start to take a look at it, it feels kind of off. It feels very flat. Look, it'll get better, quote unquote. It'll get better.
They keep saying that. So, sure. Okay.
Right. But let's get down to brass tacks about how marketing works. Marketing works by connecting us, by getting us to feel something emotionally. It's really hard to get people to feel emotional about some of these things that have been created by AI. So in that sense, I think some of it will be flat. In terms of the metaverse and all of that kind of thing, look, the metaverse was a $10 billion flop. And I don't think we're going to be in that space where that kind of thing is going to happen. Now, what I also say in the book is that the overall umbrella cult is social media. The last part of a cult is you can't get out of it.
Right.
And I would say for the vast majority of people, you can't get out of it. And to go to your point about gig workers and being part of the gig economy, that was a sell point for the boys in Silicon Valley. And I call them boys, and I don't even care if they're 40-year-old men, they're boys. because they were creating a space that they needed people to be gig workers. At the same time, corporations weren't paying people enough money for them not to have a side hustle. And so we valorized the idea of a gig economy and the side hustle. And it's all very precarious labor, and particularly people who are influencers who are making money online from these platforms. These platforms can change their mind on a dime and you could be out of work. And particularly people who are making money from TikTok right now, we don't know what's
Yeah.
going on there, but that's going to be I think that's going to be a real kick in the teeth for a lot of people, unfortunately. Don't have thoughts specifically about AI as it relates to marketing right now. I don't think that it's doing very well. What they've always said about advertising agency is that our most valuable asset walks out the door every night, right? And those are the creative folks. And it's those people who can take technology, data, information, and turn it into strategy and ideas that will talk to people in a way that will get them to engage with your marketing and your company. That's the most valuable thing. And frankly, a computer hasn't been able to do that yet, and I'm not sure it ever will be able to.
Dr. Mara Einstein, the book is Hoodwinked: How Marketers Use the Same Tactics as Cults. I'll put the link in the show notes. You guys should buy it and read it. It's so interesting. Thank you so much for joining the Back Row podcast.
Thank you. This was terrific. Thanks so much.